Hello again. Welcome to the return of Say Something Real Sunday. This is the second in the series, and it's basically, just where I turn the video on and the camera on, and I start recording, and I have an idea of what I want to say, and I just free range. So the topic of today's conversation, monologue, is what is it that we are as humans? And before I dive into that, I will just go, hello, yes, hello everyone. It's the same person as was with the crazy hair. That was COVID hair. And now it is not COVID hair. And this is more normally what I look like. So we've dealt with that. Let's crack on. So the reason I want to talk about what we are as people is because there are millions of ideas of the nature of what we are, and all of them are true and all of them are false. And I say that because there is no one incontrovertible truth that is going to stay that way forever and apply to everything all the time. So everything that we know undergoes revision as we learn more, and everything that we believe to be true turns out to be one element of a greater picture, which can change when you've got more of the picture. So with that, I want to say that it's important to have some idea of what's going on, and even as you acknowledge that that idea is subject to change, to have some idea. And I want to talk about the 4 elements that make up the human form. Now, this is not my model, and it's not the only model. It's not the only true model. It's not the only false model. It's a model. It's a way of perceiving experience in an attempt to make sense of that experience. So, the 4 elements that make up the human form: body, mind, will, and heart. So, breaking those down into each individual element and having a quick look at it, body is this physical form that we're experiencing life through. There's a huge amount of judgment against body. You just have to think about the things that we are allowed to do in our bodies and not allowed to do, and having physical needs. I'm hungry, just ignore that. I'm tired, keep going. I want to do something fun. My body is tired and hungry and sore, and it's like, well, just ignore all of those things in service to some greater goal, purpose, dream, plan, whatever. So we have a huge amount of condemnation against body's needs and a massive lack of acceptance for body's forms. I mean, simply being born into one of the human forms is much less acceptable than being born into the other. For instance, there's a massive amount of judgment against female forms, not the same amount of judgment against male forms, although there is judgment there too, but definitely the female form is seen as an inferior specimen. So, just that. There's a whole load of videos that could be made on that. But body, everyone has one. They're all different. They all function differently. They're all uniquely individual in their capacity to experience, and they're all judged against and told how they should be when, most of them aren't like how they should be. That's more the real truth, that almost nobody's body reflects any of the idealized creations of the perfect form. In fact, I would venture, I guess, to say nobody on this earth has the perfect form. So concepts of the perfect physical form are really fucking useless and just get in the way and stand in the way of acceptance of what it is that we've actually got. Right, body. Moving on. Mind. Now, mind is the capacity to have thoughts. Most people, if you ask them, where do you think from, they'll kind of go, this area, the head. Some rare individuals don't have that, but most people do. Thoughts are not actually physically located in the head, but the perceived experience is that that's where they more or less hang out. Mind is this capacity we have for thinking and the space in which thinking happens. So, it's our ability to think thoughts, as well as the fact that the thinking of thoughts happens somewhere, and that somewhere is called the mind. Now, very short story on the mind. There's a massive exaltation of the mind, as though of the four elements of the of the human form, the mind is the most superior. And that means that we've got a fetishization of anything to do with mental capacities, which is generally the intellect, the capacity to take in information, to analyze it, to make conclusions about it, to design and plan things, to have sequential linear type experiences. I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do this, then that, then this. That's a mental process. That's a process of thought. We tend to judge against people who we think have less validity because our judgment of them is that their intellectual or mental capacity is not as superior as we think it ought to be, or isn't as good as we think we've got, or as what we perceive is the minimum standard for good mental activity. So the consequence of this is that we tend to idolize people who have intellectual capacities, capacities for study, for deep thinking. And we tend to denigrate and humiliate and write off people whose strengths don't lie in the mind. So this is not a very lovely thing, but it's what we've got. Right, third element, will. Now, will is a thing that we don't really have anymore. As a species, it's kind of fallen out of favor. So let me just drag it back from the ruins of antiquity and put it back on the table. Just as mind is the space in which we think and our capacity for thoughts and the thinking that happens there, will is the space in which we have emotions, our capacity to have those emotions. So our ability to feel emotions, this is part of will territory. Now, of the four elements of human form, will has had the most horrendous bashing. If we judge against anything, we judge against emotion most of all. We have a huge level of lack of tolerance for what the actual human experience is when it comes to emotion. Just think about the generalized two forms of masculine, feminine, and you will immediately realize that if you're born into this form, here you go. This is the palette of emotion that you're allowed, and anything outside of that, you're a sissy and a sook and a wuss. And if you're born into this form, the feminine, here's your palette of allowable emotional expression. This is what you are like. And anything outside of that, you're a harridan, you're a whore, you're a slut, you're a this, that, or the other. Or you're just plain useless, or you're hysterical. I mean, those are the things that are said about will. Now, will shtick is everybody is at a bashing at will. If you express how you genuinely feel, then you are an arsehole because you discomfort others with the intensity and the authenticity of your emotion. How dare you? If you don't express how you feel, then you're an arsehole because you are withholding an element of your experience. If you express how you feel, but, on a sort of like very minor level, then you are an arsehole because you are not allowing yourself to have the fullness of your experience and you are subjecting others to a tepid, insipid version of you. There is just no way that you can be right. Whatever you're experiencing in terms of emotion, someone is going to tell you you're wrong. So we have this vast, vast, vast difference in terms of how we appreciate the function and aspects and gifts of mind versus how we don't even acknowledge that emotions happen in a similar sort of space. You've got the territory of mind where you think, and you've got the territory of will where you feel emotions. We don't even do that. The concept that there is a space in which you feel your emotions that kind of holds all the energy, that's not a common concept anymore. That is how deeply we've judged against will. And then the fourth element making up human form is heart. Now this is a very nebulous thing, People can get their heads around the fact that they've got a body. They kind of go, oh yeah, look, there it is. I can more or less see that. They can get their heads around, okay, yeah, I've got a mind, I can think, that's I can deal with that. I can accept that. They don't even know they've got a will anymore. They know they've got emotions, but it sort of happens randomly and they've got no control or function or anything there. It's just like something to sit on and squash down on the whole. But when it comes to heart, that's something that, it's like, oh my God, are we going to get all saccharine and sweet and soppy and sappy and all those like words that point to like a real, oh God, just sweep it all away, this useless heart shit. Actually, when you look into it a little bit deeper, heart is the capacity that is inherent in the human form to look at, first of all, it's the capacity to feel compassion and care. The capacity to experience whatever is going down and to give a shit about it. That's heart. It's also the kind of rooting place, as in the way information can pass through between all of the elements. It's the thing that can pull the other three elements of the human form into balance. Heart presence is when you are aware of your body, so you're not just bashing down on it and expecting it to do more than it's capable of and treating it badly and not listening to what it needs and judging against it for being whatever version of body it is that you've got. And then mind, the capacity to think, and then will, the capacity to feel. When you can pull these three elements together in heart, so they all root through heart, the awareness and perception and consciousness of them goes down and up and all the way through. That's heart consciousness. When you're not dismissing a single element of the human experience, when you're allowing for everything that is part of the human form, your body, your mind, your will, and your heart, your capacity to respond expressively to whatever's going on by caring, your capacity to include all of the elements. This is heart consciousness. So this is just a tiny, tiny, tiny little stream of consciousness. I want to talk about the 4 elements that make up humanness, because I think it's incredibly important that we at least recognize that we have these forms. And you would be amazed how many people feel intense discomfort just with the concept of recognizing that they've got a will, or that heart is a part of the whole human experience, and it's an essential part, and it's a part that can bring everything in balance. Just think about it. If you've got mind, but you don't have heart, then you just enact ruthless acts in the world. If you've got will, but you don't have heart, then you're just out of control, and how you feel is how you act. If you've got body, but you don't have heart, then you don't care about how your physicality is. I'm looking at the screen, it's doing funny things. I'll call it quits for today.